Hi, and welcome to Truth Matters. My name is Lynn, and with this podcast, I'm hoping to shine a light on a range of topics, whether Irish, regional, or global, and whether environmental, cultural, or political, because the truth matters. Today, in this very first episode of Truth Matters, here in the sunny southeast of Ireland, I will take a look at variations on the theme of democracy. If the truth be known, there was a whole lot of soul searching whether to use truth in the name of the podcast. Would it be confused with the social media site or with the religious connections? Anyway, it is said that scientists are most likely to tell the truth. I am no scientist, but I will endeavour to shine a light on the truth where I find it, outlining the facts on topics that need the truth to be told or retold. Yet Dr. Martin Luther King reminds us that facts are not always the whole truth, but I believe that they can be a scaffolding for the truth. Eventually, it was agreed that an attempt to tell facts associated with the topic warranted being under the umbrella of truth, because it really does matter. So today I'm going to take a look at one of the words of the year. It's a word on everyone's lips, democracy. But what do we really mean by it? And where are the democracies? And maybe even more pertinent, which are the countries not considered democracies, but the strongman regimes? Today we're going to take a dive into the who's who of different regimes of countries. But first we have to define what we mean by these different regimes. There are degrees of democracies, but universally it is agreed that democracy is founded on 4 pillars. The legislature, that's the parliament, the executive, that's the government, judiciary, under the umbrella of the Supreme Court, and a free media, which means an independent media, unlike Russia, for instance, but also not banning media from government press meetings because you don't approve of them. And within those 4 pillars, there are the rule of law, which ensures equality and justice, allowing freedoms of speech, assembly, and religion, whilst remembering that hate speech is not free speech. Free and fair elections, the safeguarding of civil liberties, and the separation of power of the 4 pillars. If we look back in time, the traditional despots were the chieftains, the monarchies, the empires. And now we have the authoritarian states, some capitalistic, others governed by the ruling families and the one-party or one-person regimes with absolute power. How many of those can we think of? Absolute power, in effect, equals autocracies. Authoritarian countries may not have absolute power, but have a concentration of power in the leader or a cadre of elites. Are we thinking the dark money billionaire bros here? Whilst allowing functioning social and economic institutions, as long as these are aligned with the thinking of the governing power. The modus operandi for an authoritarian regime is political repression of any opposition, and I'm sure we can think of a few countries that imprison their opposition members. Control or repression of civil liberties. Can you assemble freely still? Unfair elections. No trials or show trials. Do you remember the trial of the Russian opposition activist Alexei Navalny? Either control of or support of a nation's elites and institutions. Think what's happening with the universities in the US. And the cult of personality, those so-called charismatic leaders around the world, often older men who can lead a nation over a cliff. There are many degrees of democracies and autocracies, whether they're liberal or electoral democracies or electoral or closed autocracies. But there are other regime descriptors we can encounter. We can go down the route of anocracies with limited participation by opposition, or kleptocracies, where the few use their power to steal their country's resources, or oligarchies, where a small group control a country. And now plutocracies, newer regimes, or not so new if you go back in history, as the term is from ancient Greek and knowingly used in the 1630s, where society is ruled by the wealthy. And there are also totalitarian regimes, often referred to as dictatorships, with direct control of citizens using terror to subjugate mass populations. Hannah Arendt wrote in her book, The Origins of Totalitarianism in 1951, intellectual, spiritual, and artistic initiative is as dangerous to totalitarianism as the gangster initiative of the mob, and both are more dangerous than mere political opposition. The consistent persecution of every higher form of intellectual activity by the new mass leaders springs from more than their natural resentment against everything they cannot understand. Totalitarianism in power invariably replaces all first-rate talents, regardless of their sympathies, with those crackpots and fools where lack of intelligence and creativity is still the best guarantee of their loyalty. Crackpots and fools. She wrote that in 1951. Where are we seeing that playing out now? If the artists, the scientists, the philosophers, the teachers, and the journalists are being persecuted, even rounded up, imprisoned, or deported, you know where all this is leading to. And it's a long haul back from those perilous states. So there is no lack of choice with so many regimes to choose from. But where are these regimes? In which countries? Do democracies actually rule globally? Let's take a look. The Economist Intelligence Unit has been publishing its Democracy Index for nearly 20 years, since 2006, and it is considered one of the world's most accurate economic forecasters. The most recent 2024 index was published in early 2025, so just a few months ago. Annually, a panel of international specialists analyse the regimes of 167 countries. Some of the smaller islands aren't included. And they use 60 parameters and have categorised this into 4 groups: full democracies, flawed democracies, hybrid regimes, authoritarian countries. So with scores ranging from 0 to 10, the 2024 global average score fell to 5.17, the lowest in decades. So let's have a look at the first category, full democracies, within the 8 to 10 rating. And this is where their administrations embrace fair and free elections, a valid system of government with checks and balances, independent judiciary where decisions are enforced, a government that functions adequately, a diverse and independent media, and basic civil liberties. And it will be no surprise for anyone familiar with the Transparency Index or the Human Development Index that the top 10 of democratic countries are Nordic and European, plus New Zealand. Norway leads the charge with a score of 9.81, but Ireland retains a top 10 rating, registering at number 8 with a 9.19 score. There are 25 countries that score above 8 and are listed as full democracies. Others in the list include Australia climbing this year to number 11, Canada slipping 1 to number 14, but the UK up 1 this year to number 18. Interestingly, 17 of the 25 full democracies are from Europe, the others being New Zealand, Australia, Taiwan, Canada, Uruguay, Japan, Costa Rica, and Mauritius. A few of those may be a surprise, but take Uruguay. It sits just below Canada at number 15. Next comes flawed democracies whose scores range from 6 to 7.99, and there are some big players in this group. A flawed democracy embraces free and fair elections, civil liberties mainly honoured, but there are issues relating to media freedom and some suppression of political opposition. An underdeveloped political culture with low levels of participation in politics, and issues in the functioning of governance. Of the 46 flawed democracies, maybe not unsurprisingly, this includes the US, the so-called defender of democracy, which is number 28 on this list with a score of 7.85, and heaven knows where it will feature next year. It sits above Israel at number 31, which has a score of 7.8. And look, there is Hungary, the bête noire of the EU, at number 54, with a score of 6.34. Then come the 36 hybrid regimes, scoring under 6, starting at number 72 with Romania and a score of 5.99, dwindling all the way down to Angola at number 107 with a score of 4.05. So hybrid regimes are distinct because of regular electoral frauds, governments that apply pressure on political opposition, non-independence of judiciaries, widespread corruption, harassment and pressure on media, questionable rule of law, often low-level participation in politics, and issues in the functioning of government. No surprise to find Mexico number 84 with a 5.32 of a score, and Turkey near the bottom of the hybrid table at number 104 with a score of 4.26. Authoritarian states make up the remaining lower 46 countries with a score under 4, plummeting all the way to just above 0. Their MO is often absolute monarchies or dictatorships, infringements and abuse of civil liberties, elections, if held, are not fair and free. The media is often state-owned or state-controlled. The judiciary is not independent, and censorship or suppression of government criticism is commonplace. So Palestine is number 112 with a score of 3.44. Rwanda, slightly lower, at number 114 with a score of 3.34. I thought Rwanda was supposed to be a safe country. Anyway, Russia is wallowing in the depths at number 151 with a score of 2.03. And it is no surprise to me at all that all the Central Asian stars with their Putin puppets all feature with a score of 2 or below. But does anyone want to guess which country is at the absolute bottom of the list? Even below, North Korea at 1.08 and Myanmar at 0.96? Yes, it's Afghanistan with a rating of 0.25. Spare a thought for all those women and girls who are trying to exist in silence under the constant threat of reprisals in Afghanistan. So what does all this tell us of the countries of the world? It tells us that only 15% of countries and 6.6% of the peoples of this world live in a full democracy. That's rather a select group. A further 38% of the world's population live in flawed democracies. But hey, many of these flawed democracies can pull themselves up to become full democracies if voters are informed and inspired to get to the ballot boxes. So at its best, about 45% of the world's population live in some form of democracy, whilst 55% live in hybrid and authoritarian regimes. Many of those people living in a state of fear. Bernie Sanders, in a recent rally, flagged up the slide of the US to authoritarianism, maybe more of an avalanche these days. And authoritarian countries have a particular playbook. I have listed these under 5 headings. Number 1, divide and conquer. That's self-explanatory. Number 2, lie, lie, and lie again. Used to be called propaganda. If you tell lies long enough and loud enough, they get embraced as the truth, particularly in a tsunami of news. Hannah Arendt wrote post-World War II, this constant lying is not aimed at making the people believe a lie, but ensuring that no one believes anything anymore. Number 3, embracing the 5 Ds. Divide, deny, denounce, deflect, and distract. Thus making the distinction between fact and fiction, true and false, to no longer exist. Black now equals white, and grey is a quicksand not to be trusted. Social media is supporting much of this misinformation and disinformation. Churchill is quoted as saying, "A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its boots on." Well, isn't that the truth? Number 4, alternative reality. Because facts become debased, reasoned debate becomes impossible. For when you abandon facts, you abandon freedom. And number 5, I've called it fashionable phrases. Think of words that have latterly entered the collective lexicon and are repeated constantly. Big government, deep state, believe me, woke, DEI, corruption, liberal elite, alternative facts, fake news, the deal, winning, huge, or maybe I should say bigly. These are simplistic expressions that are not supported by facts or even definitions in many cases. Violence, incarceration, the threat of war are becoming greater realities for much of the world. There are currently 91 state-based conflicts raging around the world, involving about 60 countries. Can you name more than 10? Without the glare of media, we have little to no idea what is going on in some countries. And the leaders of many countries deliberately refuse to allow media access, so nothing can be reported by even a national unless they risk arrest for publishing. I'll be covering the wars of the world in a later episode. So the next time someone scoffs at the idea of living in a democracy, remember that it is a precious thing that only a minority of under 7% of people in the world enjoy, the freedom to live in a full democracy. And Ireland is one of them. We all have to become activists in treasuring the freedoms we have. So until the next time of Truth Matters, this is Lynn signing off, and thank you for listening.